It looked like a dog, you know. They call it like the dog man or something. I mean, this thing was built. I mean, this thing was rugged. I mean, it's something I wouldn't want to tangle with it, you know.
One night, I'm sitting there and I had a dead body in my bed.
Yes, that's when I started hearing the doors opening and closing and then walking through the house.
My eye level is about 8.5 feet off the ground. He was looking at me eye to eye.
Welcome to Myths, Monsters, and Mullets. I am your host, John Methenkamp. If you have a paranormal encounter you'd like to share, you can email me at mythsandmullets@gmail.com. You can find me on Facebook, YouTube, Spotify. And if you're listening on YouTube or Spotify, make sure you're leaving me a comment. Let me know how I'm doing. I really do enjoy reading your comments. And don't forget to like, subscribe, share. That's the best way to grow the show. Tonight's show is a good one. We got Rome coming in. He had an interesting Bigfoot encounter out in Colorado. And then he will be back for a part 2. So be looking for that sometime next month. I hope you enjoy the show. And welcome to Myths, Monsters, and Mullets. I am your host, John Methenkamp. Today on the show, we have Rome from Colorado. How you doing today, Rome?
I'm doing good. How are you, John?
Wonderful. Glad you came on. We had a little technical difficulty when we were trying to do this on TikTok. Trying not to get too much into the conspiracy realm here, but seemed awful odd that I wasn't having any problems until you started talking about this stuff. So
we're going to strange.
Yeah. Like even my mods, they have complete control over my lives. Like they can shut the thing down if they want to. They can kick people out. They can do whatever. They had no control over my live. I couldn't even shut down the live for the longest time. So it was weird. And as I've said on my show before, I don't believe in coincidences. So yeah, it was weird.
I tend to have that effect on people.
Yeah. So talking off air, I found out that you had a little more going on than just what we were talking about on TikTok. I'd kind of like to touch on that real quick.
Okay.
You say, before we get started, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself a little bit, as much or as little as you want, and then just go ahead and start us off on your Bigfoot encounter.
Okay. Well, I'm mid-50s. Let's see, I've been a truck driver for coming up on 20 years. And I've lived in this area within a 40-mile radius almost my entire life. And I'm pretty well in tune with the nature and the geographical. I mean, I've explored almost every road that I can get to within the region. I'm well in tune with the wildlife and everything that is out there that, as far as being mistaken for something, I've seen it. So I've been here in Colorado my whole life. And so I'm in a little bit of an outdoorsman, or used to be when I was in a little better physical shape. But yeah, my Bigfoot sighting, we were running the graveyard shift and hauling from Pueblo to Colorado Springs, and then on our way home, the trucks were located in canyons, so it just makes a big triangle in our region. And as me and a buddy of mine were coming down the highway from the Springs to Canyon, and it's about, I don't know, 3:30 in the morning, and he's probably, I don't know, maybe I don't even think he was a quarter mile ahead of me. And we're driving down the road, and all of a sudden I see something um, on the side of the road, and it's big. And I know the road. I mean, I know the road by heart. I've driven this road literally thousands of times. I know every bush. I know every sign. I know the road. And this figure steps right up to the edge of the asphalt and just stops. And then I can see like it was a bipedal creature, the best I could tell. I mean, um, there's just nothing else it could have been. And it steps to the side of the road and looks at me. It does it like a body twist, not so much of a head twist, but like a body twist, and watches me drive by. Now I get on the CB and I asked my buddy. I said, "Hey, did you see that?" He's like, "See what?" And I wasn't gonna just come right out and say, "I just saw Bigfoot standing on the side of the road." That's pretty crazy claim, So I
Right.
just told him,
And you don't know who all is listening to CB. So
right, it's open air. So nothing, that nothing. And I didn't tell him about it for the longest time because I didn't want to be the crazy guy in the bunch. But um the more, I mean, that was back in 2000. Oh, I want to say 2008. Um, but yeah, so we go past it, and now you got to keep in mind, I'm driving a big Kenworth. My eye level is about 8.5 feet off the ground. So when I say this figure watched me go by, he was looking me eye to eye. So that put his eye level at about 9 feet because he was a step off of the asphalt. So whatever
this is
this
a
was,
massive creature then. I mean,
yes,
you're talking probably 10,
well,
11 feet when you get to the top of the head.
9.5, 10
Holy
feet, somewhere in there. And it was the shoulders on it. It would be like two of me. I mean, it was just massive. And the people I have talked with about it was like, oh, it could have been a bear. It's like, no, because I could see the silhouette in the headlights, and it had like amber, orangish amber eye shine to it. And that's what caught my attention was, you drive at night, you look for eye shine. Anything that has eye shine, watch out. And yeah, it's like it turned and looked at me and watched me go by, but it looked me eye to eye as I went by, and it scared me to say the least. I mean, it it freaked me out. Um, but I've been back to that same location since, actually fairly recently, within the last year, and just scoped out the terrain where it was. Now it was right above a culvert that goes under the highway. Now, right off the highway, it drops off. I mean, I'm not super steep, but it probably dropped off a foot for every 2 feet. So it was a pretty good drop off of the highway. But for something to look at me eye to eye, that's what I'm guessing is it had to have been 9.5 feet.
holy
Um,
cow.
and looking at it in the daylight, it's like, well, there's a ravine that runs up through that area, And that would be my guess, is that's how it travels, is through the ravines. Keep out of sight. I mean, that's a good strategy to have. But that was
So what color was this thing? Or could you
it,
tell? I know it was
it was
nighttime and it was the
right.
headlights, but
It was dark. I would say not black, but a dark brown. It was, of course, in the dark, uh, especially being just I mean, it was a brief 2-second fighting, but it was dark in color, and I couldn't see any facial features. Um, just seeing the eye shine, it's not like it was illuminated to where I could see any facial features, but um, it, yeah, I wish I could have seen facial features. But
yeah, and you had another truck in front of you, so you didn't have your brights on, so it's not pointing. Your lights aren't pointing up at that point. They're
right,
down.
right, and but the silhouette that I saw is like this massive head, and I would say it was is its head was twice the size of mine, at least. And it went like from the ears to the shoulders. There wasn't like a neck. I mean, there was a neck, but it wasn't. It was just pure muscle. It was like a bodybuilder times 10. Just massive, and uh, the arms were draped down. Well, his hands were hanging well below waist level, but as it stepped, what caught my attention was it was coming toward the road and stopped. It just froze in its tracks, and then the body twist to look at me as I drove by, and it wasn't tracking me with its head. It was like had to turn its body to see me go by.
So a lot
And
of people, when they describe that, they say it's just like the torso moved.
right,
Like the
right,
the hips kept facing in one direction, but they were able to turn their entire torso. Is that what you're talking about?
right, the torso twist. Um, it would be like a human wearing a neck brace, because their head doesn't rotate like that. And the shoulders, the torso twist, and it just followed me going past. Um,
And
and
you're
that
not. I mean, you live in this area. It's not
right,
like you're from New York City and you're visiting the state of Colorado and have never seen a bear before.
right. In fact, I've encountered quite a few bear, and I know what a bear looks like. I know the body structure. That is not what this. I mean, that would have been the biggest bear I've ever seen by
Right.
far. But the silhouette was not that of a bear. It had shoulders, and it was broad. It wasn't. Yeah, because a bear doesn't really have pronounced shoulders. I mean,
Right.
it tapers from the head to the neck, and then the shoulders get a little wider. This was built like a, well, um,
It's okay.
I live in a brick shit house. This was massive, and he. I'm assuming it was he, just with after analyzing it for the past whatever year, however long it's been, 15 years. Um, it I'm assuming it was a male just by its size, but the location of it, we were right across the highway, actually, on as it sits on the road. He was on my right. On the left is the fence line to the Fort Carson property, and
Yeah,
that's
and
where.
we're gonna get into that, but I still have a couple questions first, because Fort Carson comes into a lot of what we're going to be talking tonight.
Right.
But I have a
Okay.
couple questions about this incident before we move on to that.
Well, and that was the direction it was headed.
Okay.
Now,
And you hear a lot of encounters on military bases. So
yes,
yeah.
and actually at the same, I'm not going to say the same time that I had my sighting, there was another sighting in that general time frame of it actually happened to be a Fort Carson soldier that was going, he was going shooting with his kid, and they had a sighting, and they tried to track it down, but it was in that same, probably within 1,000 yards of where I was. And
Really?
I want to say it was the same time frame, but I don't remember the specifics about that sighting. And that was what really kind of got my attention. It's like, well, this is interesting, because he described the same thing. It was a 9.5 foot tall being.
Right.
Um,
And where did you hear about that encounter?
I was reading up on the sightings in our area.
Gotcha.
Um,
Gotcha.
it-
So maybe BFRO or something like that.
right. I've been to several different sites that I think it was the BFRO.
Another good one that I like to use is the mapping project.
I haven't seen that.
It kind of lists a little bit of everything, but it's a really interactive map. Whereas BFRO, you kind of got to know where you're looking first.
Right.
You know,
Right. And
the,
I was investigating Highway 115, because
okay,
it's kind of a crazy corridor.
right. So when you first saw this, was it standing there the whole time, or did you see it like walk out?
No, when I saw it, it was just taking a step, and then it it, it like saw me coming and just froze, and then did that body twist. So he was getting ready to walk across the highway, and
So it's almost like your buddy in front of you, he was waiting for him to pass
right,
and maybe didn't
and
realize that you were behind the other semi.
right, and he
Yeah.
was just waiting for a break in traffic. At 3:30 in the morning, we were. I'm not going to say we were the only ones out there, but there wasn't any traffic to speak of. It was just us.
Right.
Um, yeah, and for the truck ahead of me not to see him didn't really surprise me, because in 2 steps he could have been from the bottom of that ravine up to the roadside.
Right. So he could have been
So
coming up out of that while he was going by and he would have never
right,
seen it.
right, he probably wasn't there when the truck ahead of me went by.
Right. And how
And
far ahead of you did you say your buddy was?
oh, he was less than a quarter. He was probably, yeah, he was less than a quarter mile. I mean, I'd say an eighth of a mile.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah,
And
how like I'm not from the area. How curvy is this road, and was it like on a straightaway? Was it on a curve?
actually was on a curve. um, as you're going through that stretch, you're dropping down slightly, and then it does like a right hand curve, and um, from there it's a straightaway for another half mile.
Okay. All right. I was just curious. Not a real reason for that question. I was just
No,
curious,
well,
trying to get a mental picture in my mind.
and we're the Highway 115 runs. I mean, on the west side of 115 is mountains, and then to the east of 115 is pretty much flatland. I mean, we're right at the base of the mountains, or where the mountains would start. I mean, they're not great big mountains, but yeah, they're hills. Um,
Well,
base
to
of the
me, I'm in Indiana, so it'd be a mountain.
right. We call it foothills. But it's kind of interesting where the mountains actually start from the prairie, and it's pretty distinct. I mean, not a straight line, but it's a distinct. You go from prairie to mountains.
Yeah. I've never been out west like that, and I really, really want to. I told my wife that I'd like to retire to Montana, but I've never been there, so I don't know why I want to retire there. But
I think it takes a special individual to do that.
yeah,
I
yeah,
hate the
I don't like neighbors. I really don't like. My favorite saying is, I not only want to be able to pee off my back porch, I want to poop off of it too.
right.
So, and I don't want anybody to notice. So
Right. There's nothing wrong with that. I just hate the cold. So
yeah, that would be the only thing. Like I'd have to win the lottery or something. That had to be like my summer home, and
right.
then maybe have something a little warmer locale for the winter.
Then it would be okay.
Yeah.
But living here all my life, I've gotten to where every year I hate winter just a little bit more.
And I don't know about you guys, but man, this January has probably been one of the coldest Januaries I've ever remembered. Like, just it won't let up. Like last week was the first time we were above freezing, I think, all month.
Ooh, see, I couldn't do that. Well, I mean, we had about a week stretch that it was sub-zero, and
Yeah, we were the one night we had wind chills like 25 below, and but we it literally has not been above 32 degrees. I think it was for like 25, 26 days straight.
oof,
Horrible.
no,
And then we don't have it's all flatland where I live, so there's nothing to block the wind. It's nothing but cornfields and everything else. So we just get these freaking winds all winter long. It's horrible. We're off topic. We're off topic here.
Oh, yeah.
That's the way my interviews work, and I'm fine with it.
Yep.
So before you had this encounter, what were your thoughts on Bigfoot?
I would say I hadn't really given it much thought. I mean, yeah, it's always been a myth to tell stories around the campfire, and that was about as far as I took it. It's not that I was a hardcore Bigfoot believer, and although there was one other instance that I had, and it was over in the Sasquatch area. We were elk hunting, and everybody else in the vehicle saw something walk across the road, and I was the one driving, and I missed it somehow. It was like I would like to join in on that story, but I didn't see it. So everybody else in the pickup said they saw something. It's like I didn't. I mean, I was looking somewhere else apparently, but and that was probably the first encounter, but I don't really count that because I personally didn't see it. The other guys in the truck did. So then that kind of piqued my interest a little bit. It's like, these guys I would trust with my life, and they're telling me they saw something. Both of them did. I believe them. I just didn't see it.
And I think that happens a lot in these roadside encounters. You hear all these stories, and if there's multiple people in the car, it's like there's always that one person who's like, "Well, I didn't see anything."
What are you talking about? That's me. Yeah.
So,
but since this sighting, it not. I mean, I became instantly. Well, I no longer believe. I know. And there's a big difference. I believe a lot of things, but I've never encountered it. And once you encounter it, you can't unsee it. You can't. I mean, I've had arguments in my own mind about denying it. No, that wasn't what it was. And I keep coming right back to, yes, it was, and you can't unsee it. You can't deny it.
I
I've
think
had,
everybody goes through that, especially, if you're an intelligent person, you do question
right,
what you saw, because the what's the word I'm looking for? The rational part of your mind wants to tell you, well, that can't be it. There's got to be another explanation. But then when you start checking off everything that that exists,
right.
and
You go,
you're left with the thing that doesn't exist, it's probably the thing that didn't exist.
right. You go through a logical deduction. It's like, I know I saw something. I know what it looked like. And that's why I went back to that same place, and I'm looking for bushes, trees, anything that could have. Well, there's no bushes that close to the road. There's no trees that close to the road. It's like, okay, the eye shine. Well, it could have been an owl, except once again, there's no trees or bushes that close to the road to give an eye shine like that. Besides that, the size. I mean, the eye spread on it was had to be at least 4 inches between the eyes. Like, well, that was not an owl. That just I've tried to think of any logical explanation, and the only thing I can come up with is that was a Bigfoot. That was Sasquatch.
And I think it was too. I mean,
I
your
didn't.
description is the what you hear typically in these roadside encounters.
Right,
And
and it's not like I was out there Bigfoot hunting. I'm on my way home. I got two things on my mind: park the truck,
I'd heard a
go home.
statistic at one. I'd heard a statistic at one point. It's like 90% of, and I could be way off on this, but I'm trying to go off memory. It's like 90% of encounters are roadside encounters. So,
Right, and it's you look at all the Bigfoot researchers that are actively searching and coming up with minimal at best results.
yeah. I've
And
had this discussion several times with very like-minded individuals. Let's put it that way.
yeah,
And I think a lot of people. I will say that when I was talking to Jason Kinsey in the episode that just dropped on Wednesday, little plug there for that. Anyway, he says that he has more results when he does the tree knocks and the howls and things like that. But when I'm watching these other shows, it seems like maybe they go overboard with it. Maybe that's the problem. But
I think so.
I'm the type of guy that, I grew up on a farm. I grew up in the woods in Ohio, Southern Ohio. We were horseback riding and camping and stuff like that. I'm a hunt. I used to, I don't do it anymore. I used to be a hunter. And when I'm hunting something, the one thing I'm not doing is out there beating on trees and making a bunch of noise.
Right.
So why would we think that, just doing this constant screaming, yelling, and everything else is going to bring these creatures in? But, like I said, Jason says that, within 45 minutes of doing a howl or a tree knock, they start having activity.
And it could be the curiosity of the creature.
Right.
Right.
And I think if you go out there, set up a camp and just be yourself, not out there actively looking, I think you're going to have more results that way. That's just my opinion. And like Wes Germer says, I'm not an expert. I don't have one in my garage, and I'm not trying to steal his line there, But it's true. Nobody knows what these things are. If there were actual experts in this field, everybody would know who they are.
Right.
And so just from my own experience with hunting and being in nature, animals will come up to you, but you can't go out there and be frightening or doing things that's going to startle them.
Right. Make a
You know?
scene. And
Right.
that's what my parents taught me at an early age, going out with them before I could even hunt, going out with them. And I remember sitting on a hillside with my mother, and she's like, we're going to sit right here and you watch. The deer are going to just come out of nowhere. And I'm thinking, we're watching this little valley. It's like, how could they get in plain sight without being seen getting there? And she was right. It's like they just pop out of nowhere, just sit there and watch, and all of a sudden they will come out. And my mother was a very successful hunter. Well, my whole family's pretty successful hunters. And, but that was a very valuable lesson. Just sit there, minimal movement, and just watch. It will appear. And sure enough, and I think, same thing with the Bigfoot. Don't make yourself known. Don't become a spectacle, and just act natural. As far as become part of the landscape, and then the landscape will come alive. And she wasn't wrong by any stretch.
Right.
But I believe with the Bigfoot, I mean, I don't believe there's an incredible population of these animals. I know there's a breeding population, but I don't think, I don't even know, I couldn't even guess how many thousands there are throughout the country. I know I would guess there's more than thousands, but that's a wild guess on my part.
Yeah, and it goes back to nobody really knows.
Right.
You've actually seen this creature. I have not. I want them to be real, but like you said, you're a knower. I'm still a believer.
Right.
I have not seen the creature, but there's too many people like yourself who have actually seen the creature for everybody to be lying.
Well, that's the other thing, is the statistics. I mean, you look at how many sightings there are throughout the country, and some of them, yes, I could agree it's a misidentification. I agree. That happens. That at the same time, not all of these hundreds, if not thousands of people a year, they're not all lying, and they're not all misidentifying what they see.
Right. Do you listen to Sasquatch Chronicles?
No, I don't.
So Wes has, I can look it up. He has over 1,000 episodes.
Mm-hmm.
And on each of these episodes, the majority of them, he has at least one witness, sometimes more. So let's even say that just at one encounter per episode, that's 1,000 people that have actually come forward on just his show to tell their encounters.
Right.
That there's no, and you don't gain anything by being on these shows. Like,
no,
I don't even make money from my podcast. I do this because I enjoy doing it,
Right. And the things that I speak up about, I don't want any notoriety. I'm not, I don't think I'm anything special, and I don't want to be anything special. I don't even want my real name out there.
Right.
But I'm more about facts and knowing the truth, or getting the truth out to people that would be non-believers. And it's hard to convert someone that's a staunch non-believer. You know, it's like, there's just no way. You're not going to convince them. But in the community that has seen them, by putting my story out there, lets them know that they're not the only ones. They're not an outcast for something they've witnessed. You know,
Exactly.
and I've heard many stories. I actually saw a photograph. Now, this guy was an uncle of a friend of mine. Well, we went into his uncle's. It was his game room in the basement of his house. Now, this uncle was, I'm just going to say, a high security government worker, to keep it plain. But
For whoever's listening.
right, I mean, this guy's had pictures with previous presidents. He was photographed with them, and he had those pictures hanging on his wall as, you know, trophies of his life. And I'm looking at the pictures on the wall, and I see a picture of a Bigfoot standing next to a tree. And, you know, this is on his wall of trophies, as I like to call it. And here's this picture. And I asked him, I said, what is this? And he just looks at me real calmly and says, what do you think it is? I said, well, I know what it looks like. I mean, I wasn't there. I said, you took this picture? I said, yeah, I took the photograph. Well, what was it? He said, what do you think it is? He would not say what it was. And he just kind of smiled. He's like, he wasn't about to say, I got a picture of Bigfoot, because of who he is. But at the same time, you wouldn't have a photograph of this on your wall, you know, on your trophy wall, without it being something. And he was not the type to mislead or tell tall stories. He was probably one of the more straightforward people I've ever met, but he would not admit what it was. He's like, you know, at the risk of sounding crazy, I guess.
Yeah. And I think that, you know, most people, and maybe it's just my naive way of thinking, most people who have these encounters and maybe even have photographs or videos, a lot of the people who hold on to them and don't release them, it's because they don't need to prove it to anybody else.
Right.
You know, and you throw in the fact that now any video, any photo that comes out, the non-believer is going to say that's AI.
Yep.
That's Photoshop.
Yep.
So it doesn't do any good to put these videos and photos out, because it's just going to get picked apart so bad that people just won't even pay any attention to it. So when people ask, I hear it all the time, where's the video? Where's the photo? Everybody's got a cell phone in their pocket. Why didn't you take a picture?
Yep.
Bull crap. Because for one, just like with your encounter, most encounters take less than 5 seconds. You know, they're roadside encounters. You don't have your phone ready. You don't have your camera pulled up.
Right.
And, you know, they expect these, you know, studio quality pictures when you're looking at something you don't know what it is. You're probably freaked out. Your hand's shaking. You got to get your phone out. Got to turn on the camera.
Yep.
And you got to do all of that in 5 seconds. Don't ask me for the pictures. Don't ask me for the video, you know, because even if I show it to you, you're not going to believe it anyway. So,
well, and that comes from, I guess we're from a little bit of a different time era, back when your word meant something. I was raised, well, with the older generation, that your word is everything. And if people can't believe one thing you say, then they shouldn't believe anything you say. And I've kind of lived by that. If I say it, you can take it to the bank. It's this is I mean it maybe I was misled, but this is what I saw. Um, but that was back in it, it's back from time when your word meant something and it wasn't just for likes and clicks and um, back when life was a little different.
Wasn't the 80s great?
As much as I can remember, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But it was so much nicer just because you didn't have, you know, if I brought you a picture or something and said, look at this, we didn't have Photoshop. We didn't have, unless you were like, a millionaire and could afford to,
Right,
pay somebody to alter these photos.
right.
If I had a photograph of it, there was no denying it. I took this picture. Here it is. But now, with
You got to,
technology and stuff, you do have to question these things.
yep, you have to question everything now. And it was such a more innocent time, I think. I mean, we got away with a lot, but it was
That's what I was getting ready to say. I don't know how innocent we were, but when it came to things like this, yeah, it was innocent because it was pretty black and white.
yeah, there wasn't so much deception. And I see that on all the social medias. It's the greater majority of everything I see is someone trying to deceive the rest of the public, Like, I don't get it. I really
Right,
don't.
right. Okay, well, so that was so you drove by the and you couldn't see any more of this creature then.
Right. But it was the whole thing of it looking me eye to eye as I drove past. Now, like I said, I'm in the seat of a Kenworth. I sit up there quite a ways compared to, you know, car traffic. And you're the the perspective you get from riding in a truck is totally different. In fact, that's one of the things I love about driving a truck is I see things that most people don't, and it's through my perspective. Um, you know, whether it's driving in the summer traffic and people don't realize you're looking down inside their car, or I can see I'm elevated more, so I can see further. I can see things that you don't see in your car. Um,
Right.
but that was what sticks in my mind the most is it looked me eye to eye as I drove past, and that I mean it freaked me out a little bit. I'm not gonna lie, but at the same time, is I feel lucky, lucky to observe it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Wow. That was good. That was a so I'm going to steal from Wes again. What do you think these things are?
well, that opens there's a whole lot of possibilities. Do I believe it's well? I don't know what to believe. I know what it is, but I don't know why or where. Um, do I believe it's what is it, Gigantopithecus? No, I don't, and I'm not even sure why. It just doesn't fit um, the drawings that I've seen of the Gigantopithecus. I don't. That's not exactly what I saw. Now, granted, these are renderings from basically someone's imagination, what they look like. It's completely possible, and I think they've been here forever, so it is possible. I mean, when the Native Americans have stories of Sasquatch and how they interacted with them, and those stories go back thousands of years. How many thousands? I don't know. but they go way back in history. And but at the same time, there's a lot of sightings that they say there's a correlation between the Bigfoot and UFOs. I can't make that connection, honestly. I mean, maybe there is. And there's been a lot of Bigfoot sightings that are followed by lights in the sky. I'm not gonna,
Yeah.
I used to be one of these people that would say that's impossible or that could never happen. But throughout my life's experiences, I've learned to not say impossible and
Right.
and never, um,
Right.
because I've seen the impossible, and never is pretty definitive, meaning never. So those are two terms don't I don't use anymore, because is it really impossible? No. Is it unlikely? Yes. But impossible? No. So,
Right.
but as far as what the creature is, I I don't know. I think it's a prehistoric man, would be the best way to explain it, because it's been here long. I think it's been here longer than we have.
Yeah. I like my, I plug shows all the time, especially my friends. But Matthew over there at Drunken Cryptids, I like his definition of Bigfoot, and it changes about every 9 minutes. So, because you hear different stories and you hear different information, and it's like, well, if that's true, then what I just thought 9 minutes ago is kind of shot.
Right.
So you kind of go back and forth on what these things are. So again,
But
like Wes says, there's no right answer, or no
right,
wrong answer to this question.
and if we knew definitively what this creature was, then we would know what it is. But we don't.
But even then, we're finding things out about animals that we know about. We're finding out more and more about them. It's like, oh, wait a minute, that's new,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So even the experts in the animals that we know about, they're still finding things out. So, even if we had one of these creatures in a zoo, that doesn't mean that we still know everything about it.
No.
So yeah,
It's like
I love the cryptids. I love Bigfoot and Dogman and
the
stuff like that.
like the migration patterns. I do believe it migrates. In fact, I'm pretty positive it migrates.
Yeah.
The sightings down here on the plains increase in the winter months. Well, because it gets a little too cold up on the mountains, so they come down to feed. Of course, the big game, it comes down in the winter months, and then during the spring and summer, it goes up into the higher elevations. And I firmly believe, I firmly believe that Bigfoot is a carnivorous animal. They eat meat. They can sustain on berries and grubs, but they are a big game hunter, and that leads me to believe they've got the ability of I forget what the term, basically subsonic. I believe that they can.
The infrasound.
Yeah, infrasound. I believe they can stun an animal through sound.
There's a lot of reports of that. Matthew over there at Drunken Cryptids says that he got hit with the infrasound. So,
see, and that's something that we didn't know existed. I don't know how far back, but we didn't know how sound worked that well, and that there is that some animals make a sound you cannot hear. That's like elephants, you know, they make sounds that they can hear for miles. It's like, how? And it's just a low rumble. Okay, well, that's interesting. But there's prey animals that, well, like I guess in the oceans, um, there's fish that can make sound that stuns the prey, and it makes them easy prey. I do believe it is possible that that's what Bigfoot is capable of. Even if it's just enough to not even, not to paralyze, but to confuse enough to where if they get a hold of an animal, whether it's an elk, a deer, I'm pretty sure even a bear, if they can get a grip on it, it's done. I mean, the whole opposable thumbs at that size of a hand, you're talking bone crushing. I mean, just shattering bones. So, I mean, it makes it a really good hunter because, and that's another thing is, well, can they outrun the game animals? I don't know, but I imagine a creature with a 9-foot stride, once he gets opened up, he can move, you know. So it is possible that they could catch a deer.
Yeah, and you hear the reports of these things moving, 45, 50 mile an hour.
Well, I would imagine an animal of that size, with the body structure that it has, it could. I would imagine 45 wouldn't be any stretch, but and then I've heard stories of them being on all fours. It's like, well, it's completely possible that they dropped to all fours and they just became twice as maneuverable. So
Yeah.
Yeah, to catch big game, I don't think it would be a problem for them.
Right. And that's it for tonight. If you have a paranormal encounter you'd like to share, you can email me at mythsandmullets@gmail.com. Once again, I'd like to thank Rome for coming in, and be looking for part 2 coming out soon. Good night, everyone.
'Cause what you make me feel is